position monitor can also be activated from this icon here. Then I get a lot of information here in the position monitor. It's called also in brackets CRP position status. CRP is short for common reference point. So this is the 000 point on our local coordinate system that we have defined. We're using that to compare the two navigation systems. We have what we call priority 1, that's the primary GPS. We're calculating that because it has offsets down to what we call now, Ilya, that's because you have forgotten to put this instrument into simulated mode. So please do that and then restart Navipac. You know, Navipac will always, if you have an instrument in on mode, it will tell the operating system to open the port. And if the port doesn't exist physically, the operating system will come up with an error like that, fail to open port number 4 in your case. And that's simply because your, I can't remember which one it is, 4, that is secondary GPS, must be in simulated mode. As I was saying, the primary GPS has an offset. So the actual GPS antenna position is not relevant here. We're calculating it down to the CRP, and that is this position you have under my cursor here. We do the same for priority 2, and then of course these positions should be identical or close to identical. The easting and northing that we have up here are the same as the reference position because prioritized mode means that we only take one of these GPSs. The other one, in this case, priority 2, is a backup. Here on the difference, you see the difference between priority 2 easting, northing, and height, and priority 1 easting, northing, and height. So, of course, this value should be reasonably small. Now, priority 1 is the primary GPS, and therefore it is highlighted. If I click on secondary GPS button and acknowledge, then the secondary GPS will become my priority 1. But we're still using prioritized navigation, only using one of these GPSs. And now the secondary is highlighted. If I go back to primary, we're back to where we were before. Now, combined, let's press the combined button and see what happens. Now, we are combining the positions. We're using information from both GPSs to calculate our vessel position. By default, when we are in combined navigation mode, we are giving the two GPSs the same weight. We're saying that they have the same quality. You can see that on the arrows in this column here, that they are of the same magnitude, but with different signs. Easting minus 0.86 and plus 0.86 for the secondary, and then also minus 1.09 and plus 1.09 for the secondary. So that tells us that the actual position is right in the middle between the two. But try to imagine a situation where we know that the primary is an RTK solution, for instance, and the secondary is some sort of code differential solution. And that means that the primary is perhaps 5 times better than the secondary. That could be 5 centimeters horizontally against 25 centimeters horizontally, 1 times sigma. How can we use that information? Well, we can here under Edit, Surface Position Control, like this. Edit Surface Position Control. We can choose to say these are the sigma values, or the standard deviation. This is you can say a no unit value. So we'll just state these relative to each other. If we say that the secondary has a value of 10 sigma, then the primary must be 5 times better, like this. And also on the northing. So now they are, we've told Navipac the primary is 5 times better than the secondary. Navipac will then weight the position relative to the inverse of the square of the standard deviation. That means that it will weight the primary 25 times higher than the secondary. That is 5 squares. Let's see how we can see that in the precision monitor. We have the correction to the primary is 7 centimeters minus. And then we can see here that the correction to the secondary is plus 166. So that is, well, close to a factor 25. There's simply some rounding here. And the same for the primary, 8 centimeters and 2 meters 10. That is also close to 25, a factor 25. That's simply how it is right now. The advantage of this is that if the primary drops out, the secondary take over immediately. If the primary comes back, then we will have the same scenario that we have here, also immediately. And you can say that we are so close to the primary that you can say it is identical to the primary. The prioritized navigation, if I select it here and then under navigation choose here, navigation mode, automatic change of priority. That means that Navipac, if we are in prioritized mode and the priority 1 navigation drops out, then it will go to the priority 2 navigation and make that the priority 1. But the disadvantage is that it doesn't go back automatically. You have to do it manually in this mode here. Well, having said that, however, most users are actually using the prioritized navigation. I would say prioritized is probably good when you are doing data acquisition, where you need to have a good position at all times, where combined can be used for a construction support scenario where it's important to have a position at all times. That's certainly how I would look at it. Now, if we go to combined again, just briefly, you can see that if I go to surface position control, we have the same values that we had before, of course. So if I perform an automatic start, these values will not be changed. But if I do a manual start, either because Navipac tells me to do a manual start or because I force Navipac to do a manual start by pressing the reset button, then these values will be reset. That is, the sigma values will be reset because they are not configuration settings. They are online settings. So you can say, generally speaking, if you perform a manual start, you go back to the configuration settings. And by default, sigma values are 10 for all surface navigation instruments. That's worth taking into account, of course, if you want to use combined and you want to weight your navigation. If you've done a manual start, then go and check and potentially change the weights. I'll go back to prototype because basically that's what most people are doing most of the time. Now for the gyro, we have 2 gyros now. Let me see here. You can see that my gyro reading, the raw data reading, is 15, but my value in Navipac is 16. So that is a plus of 1. That tells me that my CPAP gyro is the one that I'm using right now, because the vessel gyro has a C-O of 2, and we don't have 1.5, we have 1. And that's how it is. By default, Navipac will take the first instrument on the list, CPAP gyro, and use that. Here we cannot combine, we can only use one of them. But I can change it in real time by choosing Edit Vehicle Control here. I only have one object now, so that's the vessel object. But here I can say, okay, right now the CPAP gyro is used. There's a red P in front of it. This is the primary. But if I right-click on the vessel gyro, I can choose Set as Primary. Are you sure you want to use this as primary? Yes, I am. Indeed. And now, as you can see, my gyro value is 17 because we've added 2. That's the C-O of the secondary instrument, which is now primary. Once again, if I do an automatic start, the secondary gyro will still be used. If I do a manual start, we'll go back to the configuration setting. This is the sequence here, of course, is also a configuration setting. And the same applies for motion data here. We do the same there. I can also change the sequence here. I can just grab it and move it up, see, briefly. And now vessel gyro, next time I go online, vessel gyro will be my primary gyro. I don't want that, so I'll just go up again. But this is the way you change the sequence. It's very important, actually, to have a sequence that corresponds with the, or reflects the quality of the instruments. Another thing on the project settings here, project settings, advanced. Here it is possible to auto-switch gyro and auto-switch motion. This is, again, something that corresponds to what we could do with the surface navigation. If the primary drops out, Navipac will automatically switch to the secondary for gyro and or motion. System will not switch back to primary until a restart has been performed. This is not true because you can do it online, as it also says here. I can safely say that in my many years with the IVA software, I've never used this setting here. Maybe I'm conservative, I don't know. But I think there must be a really good reason to use this. That could be construction support, where it's important to have a position at all times. And of course, you don't have position if you don't have a gyro. So one last thing before we move on would be to look at the GPS status window here. It's another one of those windows that is good for debugging, and there's no problem here to have it open at all times. Um, it tells us something about the status of the GPS, not so much the position, but more the quality or some quality parameters at least. So by default, we have the same information on these two. But if I press the extended view icon to the left here, then you can see that I actually get a lot more information regarding the secondary GPS. If I open the raw data window once again here, then you can actually see the reason. Use string filter. For the primary, I'm not using the satellite and station information. But if I then choose COM4, then I'm using the information. You see, string filter doesn't have an effect here. And that's basically because of the fact that we've changed the string filter to $GPG. We're not filtering anything away, as a matter of fact. Station and satellite information is available, and that's basically that information that is used to populate the last columns to the right here. Sometimes there are requirements for this from the client that they want to have this information made available. This is normally not windows that I'll keep open. Okay, so now we'll continue. I'm actually, from now on, giving you hints for the exercise, you can say. Theoretically, you should be able to complete the exercise from this point onwards, but there are so many things that are, well, you've done the e-learning, but it's also difficult to remember everything. Here, let me show you. This is the slide that shows the vessel configuration. We've done the surface navigation, the two surface navigations, the two gyros, and the two motion sensors. We have something we call data acquisition. This was in the old days, those typically a single beam echo sounder. And we're also going to use a single beam echo sounder here at the CISA-20 on COM7. And this is one of the instruments that you are going to add in simulated mode. There's also another instrument here, data acquisition instrument, that is, we call it distance shoot info. This is actually an instrument that is calculated by Navipac. It's in calculated mode, as you can see here. Data acquisition instruments in Navipac have 3 channels by default. Some have less, but you can only have a maximum of 3 channels for a data acquisition instrument. This distance shoot info has also 3 channels that are populated by Navipac. This is something that I'll talk about tomorrow, but you just enter this. There are no settings really apart from that it should be IO COM20, and remember to leave it in calculated mode. This is then your first instrument that is not in simulated mode. We have 2 dynamic positioning instruments, USBL instruments, and I will show you how that works now. We will right-click on the vessel object here and choose Add Instrument. And this time, because we don't have any instruments of this type, we have to find it, and we find it under Dynamic Positioning here. The first one is a Kongsberg High-Pav APOS. You find it down here, Kongsberg, HiPAP, APOS. I just double click on it. And then here, this one is defined on COM8. We'll just skip COM7 for the time being. That's where we have the Atlas DC-20. COM8, like this. Notice the 0 to the right here. We'll come back to that later on, but you could say a dynamic positioning system in this case is, of course, used to position an item on the RV object, but we don't have an RV object, so we want to add an RV object to our configuration. Do that by pressing if you look at my cursor at the top here in the icon bar here, add vehicle. Click on that. Add vehicle, and then we just call it ROV. It's a subsurface instrument. Create. So now I have two objects, vessel object and the RV object. They're not linked together right now. Notice the icons here. This is, well, it is actually an RV icon, but that is because it is subsurface type. This one is a surface type or vehicle. That's why it has this icon here. But apart from that, of course, the vessel object is special, but any other objects can either be subsurface or vessel. But the only difference between those two is the icon. Everything else is identical. There's some strange sounds right now that I can't understand. Okay. Okay. Now let's go back to the dynamic positioning system. First of all, of course, the IO mode must be simulated. We don't have a HiPAP here. But apart from that, I'm not going to change anything. Not now. We'll go through it tomorrow, but not now. But I need to link it to the RV. And you do that by moving the cursor to the 0 here. And then it becomes a plus, which basically indicates that we can add something. So I click on the plus, and then I get a drop-down list. And this drop-down list only contains one item right now because I only have one secondary object. But if I had more, then they would be listed here. I'll choose the RV, and then automatically I get a transponder on the RV that is linked to the HiPAP. If I put my cursor on top of it, you see that the link is indicated by this background, the red background color. So if I select the Kongsberg HiPAP here, I can modify my settings. The whole idea is that on the RV object, we're going to have 3 transponders. 2 of these are related to the Kongsberg HiPAP, and the last one is related to a Sonodyne USBL system that you must add to the configuration here. But this one is linked to that Kongsberg. I'll change the name here, select it and change the name. This one is supposed to be on the port side of the RV, so I will call it port here. A transponder must have a TP code or transponder code, And we'll make these simple here. And just give this one TP code 1. But it has to have a TP code. Yeah, this is normal. Nothing like master and slave or anything like that. No emergency beacons or anything like that here, but they need to have an offset. The transponder X is -1. I'm making these offsets very simple. Tomorrow you will understand why. But basically just -1, 0, 0. No, we know where it is now. And of course the axes are in the same direction on the RV as they were on the vessel. So X is a cross track or a cross vessel, Y is a long vessel, and Z is in vertical direction, positive up. Let me show you. It's really quite simple here. Port, offsets, TP code 1. That's basically all you need to know to do. We need to create, and I'm referring now to the PowerPoint that I showed you initially. Here, the data flow. The position from Navipac to Naviscan, or rather the positions, because as I told you, we're going to send 5 different positions from Navipac to Naviscan. Those positions are these 5 that I have defined here. Might sound complicated, but it really is simple. We're using the same driver for these outputs. We're using the same driver 5 times because this particular driver can be used 5 times. So I'll start by right-clicking on the RV and adding an instrument here. This instrument is a data output down here. Data outputs all the way down. This one here, position exp to Naviscan. It's important. There's also one down here called position to Naviscan. That's not the one we're using. We're using this one here, position exp expanded to Naviscan, like this. Okay to that. And now this is different from what we have tried before, because this is an output and it's created by Navipac. So therefore, we can put it into on mode. We don't have to use the simulator for this. But we don't have any serial ports. You don't have any. I don't have any. And we would also normally use some sort of LAN-based communication. In this case, UDP/IP protocol. Now, Navipac and Naviscan are executed on the same computer. So therefore, the address, the IP address here is the local IP address, 127.0.0.1. If Navipac and Naviscan were executed on separate computers, we would have to define the IP address of the Naviscan computer here. But that's not the case here. Local IP, you can also just press the set local host. That will fill the address out automatically. The port number for this one here is 5005. We're using ports 5000 upwards, generally speaking, in Navipac, because they're not used by Navipac and they're not used by the operating system. So 5000 upwards. This one, 5005. Here, exercise notes, as you can see here, UDP IP 127.0.0.1, 5005. IO mode on. I'll say okay to this, and now IO mode on. I need to change the name of the output, and we will call it ROV to NS. That this is the RV position to Naviscan. Down here under source, I'm maintaining IO mode on. Down under source here, you can see that I have two different possibilities. I can either send the CRP position, this is the common reference point of the RV, or I can send the port. The CRP is the combined position of the transponders that we have defined. Right now we've only defined one, but we'll define two others, and that's the one we will start with. Port, on the other hand, is the raw position of the port transponder. That's the one that your post-processing friends, that is yourselves, in a couple of days will be using for post-processing. But here, CRP, we call it RV to NS. So this is the first of the 5. I will add another one once again, and now I can do it in this rectangle, add instrument. And once again, this is the expanded. I just press EXP, and then I know that's the one that's popping up like this. Double click on it. And this port number here, still UDP IP. And this time it is 5010. If you cannot follow exactly what I'm doing here, you should not become desperate, because it's really easy to go to it in the exercise notes here. But this is going to be the raw transponder position to Naviscan, so I'll call this on port to NS, like this. IO mode is on, and the source is port. So there is another one that I need to tell you, because you've got no chance of knowing how to do that. Let me show you here. We've seen this, the CRP, that is the combined position. We've seen one of the raw positions. The starboard and center are ones that you are going to set up. But there's something down here that's called Kalman to NS. So what is Kalman? In this context, Kalman is an INS position, inertial navigation system position, that Navipac can calculate. You will simply take everything available and combine it into the best possible position. It will, for instance, take the CRP position, but it will combine it with information from a Doppler log. If you combine USBL, that has an absolute position, but is also very noisy, with a Doppler log that has absolutely no idea about where it is, but it is very stable, then you get a combined position that knows where it is and is stable. And that's what we're doing. We call this the Kalman position. It's also taking information from gyro and motion, but that's secondary to Doppler log and USBL. The key is how to enable it. Well, if you select the RV object by clicking on the RV caption here. Then you get the properties of the RV. One of the properties is use Kalman here. Let me just give you this on the chat. Ah, 2 seconds. Something like this on the chat in 2 seconds time. No, that's the old one. Forgot to copy. To the clipboard. There it is. Now the Kalman is enabled. Then we can go back and add another data output to the configuration. Right click add instrument and then here exp position exp to Naviscan. Okay, so that's, and this one is then once again a UDP IP, but here the port number is 5025, like this. I will change the name to Kalman to NS, Kalman to Naviscan. And then here on the source, now the Kalman is available because I have enabled it in the RV properties, like this. So let's go back once again to the vessel object and see. You guys are going to add a Sonadyne, as I said, exactly the same way we've done for the Kongsberg on COM9. The second transponder is going to be related to Kongsberg. You just press the plus once again, then you get a Kongsberg transponder. Once you have the Sonadyne, then it will say 0 here, and then you put your cursor there and press the plus and add another transponder to the RV object so that you have 3 transponders, 2 related to the Kongsberg, 1 to the Sonadyne. We've got an instrument here, the IVA runtime control, a very, very simple instrument. The only thing you need to worry about is the IP address, of course. Yeah, it is. You can always discuss whether you need, but there's no problem in having both. Wrong. It's a good question, but why not have both? Or at least initially, you can see whether one might be better than the other, or one might have certain advantages over the other in certain scenarios, etc. So, not really any problems in doing that, actually. I would say. But here of course, I don't have a possibility to do an INS from. I don't have a simulator that does that. I would really like to show you this, but of course, it in any given scenario, it's up to you to choose which one is the better combination for me and for the service spread. So thank you very much for that question. I was talking about the data output here. The one that was called Iva Runtime Control, that's this one here. You're simply just sending it from Navipac to Naviscan. Helps us to control the logging in Naviscan. So just use the default settings, the COM port settings. No, not the COM port settings, the UDP port settings, like this. Now we've got the last instrument here, that is the ZTA time plus PPS. That's the instrument we're using to synchronize computer clock to GPS time on COM1. Please remember to put it into off mode, at least temporarily. I cannot simulate it. So I would just say that you should put it into off mode, and then we can have a look at it tomorrow. I'll explain to you what you can do with it. If you don't put it into off mode, you want to go online, then you have a problem, because then you get the same warning that Billy was getting earlier, that port doesn't exist. Now, for the RV object, you need to add a gyro and motion sensor, an octant gyro, actually also an octant motion sensor on the same port. Please remember that there is a latency here. I'll explain to you about that particular latency tomorrow. A Doppler log, I already explained that to you. You should add. And then we have two data acquisition instruments. The data quartz depth is a pressure sensor that we're using to determine the vertical location of the RV in the water column. It has only got 2 channels. This is one of the exceptions from the rule that are telling us that we have 3 channels on a data acquisition instrument in Navipac. The second instrument, the Seabird 49 CTD, is an instrument that we're going to use for the exercise tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to do Datamon exercise, and the Seabird is an important part of that exercise. That's basically all we need it for. Then we have the 3 transponders and the 5 outputs. Notice, and please remember the offsets here, and also remember the TP codes. You must enter a TP code for these. And also remember different sources for the different outputs. This is important. If you want to get an overview of your configuration, that can be a little bit difficult, but notice that now I've got all my instruments on the vessel object now are in simulated mode, whereas on the RV object, they are in on mode. That's not going to continue like this, but you can see the color coding. An overview is achieved, at least in terms of interfaces, by pressing this icon here, select instrument by port, and then you get a list of the instruments that you have defined with some details. Of course, component numbers, starting with component numbers and then continuing with UDP ports, instrument name and vehicle, and also the mode is important. And this is something that, of course, you can compare with what is stated in the exercise notes. So, but this is only the first part of the exercise. There is a second part. The second part is related to the health display. And let's just introduce the health display to you guys. Here under project settings, we have a second page called Warm Start. The second page is called Warm Start. Here we can define, sometimes we call these generic windows or programs that should be opened when you enter online mode in Navipac. You've already seen that the online window is opened because that's the default setting. I didn't mention it. But here we can add the health display. So I'd like you to do that. Yeah, Samuel. They just have some different offsets. See, let me show you here. See, this is starboard, of course, plus X 1, and then TP code 2. So you just follow these. It's simply a different location on the RV, and that's why it's been given a different name. But anyway, as a display here, add that to your Warm Start programs. And now I will restart my Navipac. I can also save it first and then restart my Navipac. And then we can see what happens. First of all, as you can see here, I have my 2 GPSs in prioritized mode. Right now, I only have one transponder. That's also fine. I'll choose that as well. And then I'll say OK to that. And OK once again. See, don't worry too much about this. This is my handset display, but it's opening my handset display with the previous project. I'll simply say File, New Project. You can choose to do the same, or you can just leave it as it is, what you have here. I'll create a new project. I'll give it a name. I'll call it on/off_4. This is the name. I also need to define a location. Second step here, I will browse. And this time I will choose my project or our project, Virtual Training On/Off 2023. See, don't get confused by that. I have different instances of this one here. So basically 3 different instances of the project folder. I'll take this one here, project 3. You only have one that's called project, but the contents are the same actually. Double click and here, Health Display. This is the folder. I can double click and select folder, or I can just select folder. Navipac or the Health Display will create a HealthSpan project in this particular folder. It could be anywhere, but I think it's a good idea to have a project folder structure like the one that I'm suggesting you. I will create here And now, as you can see, I have a project, but it's empty. There's nothing in it. It's not even connected to Navipac. I can connect to Navipac. I only have to do this once. I can connect to Navipac by pressing the connect icon. If you look at my cursor here, the third icon from the left, connect. And then I can select the server, and I'll choose this one here, 127001. If you have more than one here, that could be quite often be the case. Then make sure that you choose the one that says 127001. Highlight it and press connect. A few things happen when I do that. First of all, in the top left corner, you can see that I now have two icons, tick mark icons with the green background. Connection status means that I'm connected to Navipac. The second one is the general Navipac status. This is actually corresponding with the traffic light here. So that's good. I'm connected to Navipac. As a consequence of that, further down here, I have an entry called Navipac connection. You can press the explode or the triangle. This is beyond me, Samuel. I don't understand what you mean that some vessels have two high-pep transducers. I don't know what you mean by that. Are you talking about an RV object or what is it? Can you take a screenshot and show me what it is that you mean by that? Anyway, I'm exploding on the vehicles here, and then I can see everything I have on my configuration right now. This is my vessel. I even have the RV. I have the RV TP1 that I have defined, and I have the RV Kelman. But let's focus on the vessel first of all. If I right-click on it, then I get a menu. You do that every time you right-click on an item in the project tree or anywhere else in the Helmsnet display, and these menus might look different from time to time, depending on the nature of the item that you're right-clicking on. Here, it's an object. So I want to attach a 3D model to it in order to let the vessel object be represented by a 3D model. I'm choosing this one here, MSN. That's also the one that we have chosen. As you can see, if I zoom in by rotating the wheel of the mouse, I can also rotate the view by keeping the left mouse button down while moving the cursor around. Here is the vessel object. There are other items here, but that's not really relevant. If you look at it here, I can take here the simulator and give it a little bit of speed. So now it's moving. I can also change the heading, and then it rotates a little bit. I can also go into 2D mode if you look at that. 2D view, 2D mode, like this. Now I'm looking at it from the top down. Samuel, I'm really sorry, but I still don't understand what the point you were trying to make. It's not that I don't want to answer your question, but I don't know what you mean by it.
Can I speak with the mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some vessels do have two high-pipe systems. Maybe the pole. I mean, the pole, one on the starboard, one
you
on the
mean
port. So
yeah,
sometimes they switch between poles.
yeah.
So I was asking, probably there's a way you
We
would
can
have to
talk about that.
configure. Yeah.
We can talk about that tomorrow, but I can't do this in simulation, so it's not really something I'm going to talk much about. I understand
Okay.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really. If I go to my Navipac configuration here on the high PEP, you can see down here. It's really dual transceiver. I think that's what you mean. You just call it transducer, but I think you mean transceiver Kongsberg systems. Isn't that what you mean, Samuel? Yeah, okay. This is, I'm not going to talk much about it, but I'll just talk a little bit about it tomorrow. Anyway, I don't know. Could you please, there are 5 of you, could you please tell me if you have any experience with Navipac 3? Just say Navipac 3 yes or Navipac 3 no. All of you, that would be great if you could just tell me that. Because what we're about to do now is to show you that Kim knows his Navipac 3. Illy hasn't seen it. It's not a problem to be Samuel have seen it. And Raymond hasn't. And Duong, how about you? Have you got any experience with Navipac 3? But anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's what I was about to say is that for those of you that have tried, Duong doesn't have any experience with it either. That's Samuel and Kim. The so-called shape files that we were using in Navipac 3 can also be used in Navipac 4 in the Helfrich display here. Let me show you. If I right-click on the vessel object here, I can choose, instead of 3D model, I can choose attach a 2D shape. I can choose this one here, default shape. There you go. So now it looks certainly very different from what we saw before. But I can still go to 3D, then it becomes the 3D shape that's used, 2D, the 2D shape. So why would I want to use a 2D shape? Well, basically, I use 2D. I think at least that's my personal experience, because I find that it's sometimes easier to get an overview of what's going on if you look at it straight from the top. It could be a little bit confusing. So where is the RV down here? My RV is down here, but is that close to the vessel or what is it? That can be really difficult to see. But if you go into 2D, then you're not in doubt. So if I had not attached a 2D shape, I would have seen the 3DS even in 2D mode. But then I couldn't see what was going on underneath the vessel. So these are some of the advantages by using a 2D shape. It's simple, of course, but you can also see what goes on underneath the vessel. So that is the background. That's why I'm also showing a little bit about how to create these shapes. Those of you that have tried Navipac before are going to be very disappointed when I show you this functionality here, the graphics editor. I mean, this is it's okay, but it's really not very sophisticated. Let me show you. From Navipac Online, Tools, Graphics Editor, or sometimes it's also called File Ask. The idea behind this is that you can load different files and convert them into something that Navipac can understand. That could be AutoCAD files, for instance, and then they can be converted into a shapefile, for instance. You could also load ASCII files and convert them into a runline file, for instance, or an AutoCAD file and convert that into a runline file. In our case, we will take an AutoCAD file and convert it into a shapefile that we can use in Navipac. So you press the A button here, open AutoCAD file here, and then you locate the data that I have given you here, virtual training on off 2023 data, and then NP data, Navipac data, ACAD for AutoCAD. And then there's one here called Sven and Final DWG. The program can understand the XF DWG file, but they have to be very old versions, AutoCAD version 2000 or older. It doesn't understand newer versions, this tool here. But of course, it's also easy if you have AutoCAD to just save as this particular version. This is a DWG file, AutoCAD version 2000. So I'll open it and acknowledge and OK to that. And now here I have a graphical view. You can't really see what's going on here. But if I right-click in the view here, then I can disable black and white drawing. And now I get it in colors. And then you can see the Svanen here, the swan in Danish. This is a type heavy lift vessel with two pontoons here, and then there's a superstructure here. It was actually originally designed to lift 5,000 tons, but I think it's been upgraded to 7,000 tons nowadays. So it's quite huge. But for us, what is important here is that if you look at the coordinates, you can see that we have local coordinates. The CRP is under my cursor here. This is how it was constructed, this particular shapefile. Or it's not a shapefile yet, it was an AutoCAD file. So I will export by pressing the X file here, export. And then I must place it in the location that Health Display prefers. It's described in the exercise notes. It is placed in CIVA Navipac bin. The bin folder is the folder that contains all the executables, the Health Display executable, for instance, the online executable, the position monitor that we just saw, and other executables. But there's also something else. Underneath here, you can see that there's a HealthLine folder. Inside that, there is yet another folder called 2D Shapes. This is where we want to place our shapefiles. They could also be placed in others, but there's a shortcut directly to this folder from the HealthLine Display. So therefore, that's a lot easier. I'll call this one on, off, 4_1 because I'm going to create others. Is a shapefile. I could also, as you can see here, there are others that I could use here. Display line file is actually the same format as the shapefile, only with a different extension. I could also create run lines, etc. But shapefile here and save it. I will convert both layers like this and then just say okay to that. So all of this is really just for information. Now, let's see what I can do in the HealthNet display. This is my HealthNet display. By the way, it's a good idea to save this project on a regular basis. You can also set it up to automatically save, file, auto-save project like this every 10 minutes. That's a good idea because otherwise you'll just use the changes that you have applied. Now, let me try to right-click on the vessel object and choose attach to the shape. You can see that there's a list of shapes down here. This is the one I just created. You can see that I've done this before. On/off 4_1. This is the one I have just created. And it's huge, as you can see. Let me just show you this vessel here so that yeah, there you go. Nowadays, it's used to place wind farm items like, I don't know how old this is actually. Monopiles, foundations, etc. Those kind of things. It can easily even carry the nacelles, top of the wind, etc. But this is how it is nowadays. In the old days, it was owned by Ballast Nedam, but I think Ballast Nedam is owned by Fanord nowadays. I'm not 100% sure about that though. Yeah, see, this is how it looked. This is what I remember because this was when it was creating or used to build this bridge in Denmark. It was actually built for that originally, and I was happy enough to be the first surveyor on board, even for the mobilization, etc., construction of it. So now you know how old I was. There wasn't even any color photos back in those days. So anyway, what I want to show you is how we can do this perhaps a little bit easier in the HealthNet display. Without using this file ask functionality. In the HealthNet display, we can load data by dragging and dropping. I can drag and drop a run line, but I can also drag and drop a DWG file. So I'll go to our project folder structure here once again, data, NP data, AutoCAD, and then here we have the Svan and file DWG. The DWG file, as also tells you that DWG files can be used. So I just drag and drop it and you don't see anything happening, but there is actually a new entry in the project tree window. This window here is called the project tree window. Generally speaking, in the HelpSmart display, we have three default windows. I'll show you that in a little while, Samuel, how to auto center. Perhaps tomorrow. Not right now. The project tree window, the properties, and the map view window. The project tree window, of course, shows the contents of the project. The properties displays the properties and allows you to change properties, at least some of the properties. Then and final here, if I right click on it, I can choose move to. There you go. This looks very similar to the one I have, but it is actually in a totally different location. If I zoom out, you can see it's on the equator. So basically that's where the map projection that we have right now is the central meridian and at the equator. Because the coordinates are local coordinates, but HelpSmart display doesn't really care about that. What I can do now is here under views, I only have one view. That's the map view. Right now, I only have one view. Just to be absolutely sure about it, I can open the surface grid here. Further down here under miscellaneous, if I click on map view, then I get the properties of it. Then I move down and find miscellaneous surface grid, and I enable it. So now you can see I have a grid, and then you can see the coordinates. It's not really necessary to do it, but still to reassure that we are in the right location. Remember 000 was here somewhere. Now, from the object itself in the project tree, I can right click and export. I will export it as a display line file. And remember, I was telling you that the display line file and the shape file are the same. And please don't use this format down here because it's a totally different format. This is the S3 database. So that's a ArcGIS database format that is not the same as the either shape format. If we were Americans, S3 are the Americans, so if we had used this shape format before they or after they did, they would probably have sued us. But we were using the shape format before they did, or rather the shape extension. So use the display line file format here, and then place it in the folder C IVA Navipac in HelpSmart 2D shapes. It's a little bit difficult to remember, I know that. But it, as I said, it is in the exercise notes. So this time I'll call this one on off underscore 4 underscore 2 like this. But the type is this. That's the only thing I can use it, or I can save as. Save as a dis file, and then this is the great thing about HelpSmart Display because it's really helpful. You can open it in text editor, that would then be a notepad or default editor, HelpSmart Display, or just open the containing folder, and that's what I want to do, the latter. Here it is. So the only thing I need to do is to change the extension to SHP. Then it will be understood by the headset display. Are you sure you want to change it? Yes, I am. So now I have an alternative shapefile that I can use. And basically, I'm just showing you two different methods of doing this. And that's this one here. This is the one I just created. It's identical to the other. There you go. So this is basically the new one. Notice the surface grid is following. I probably don't want to see it again, at least not now. But the advantage here using the headset display is that it understands all formats. This happened to be AutoCAD 2000, but it would also be able to understand AutoCAD 2023 if there is any version. I'm not even sure about that. And according to my colleagues, this is a generic reader, so it will even understand future versions, future DXF or DWG files. You just drag and drop and save as. So that is, of course, very simple. Let me show you the exercise notes, and I also want to make sure that I'm not telling you something that isn't true. Yeah, this was creating of a shapefile based on an AutoCAD file, and then manually creating a shapefile. This can also be done using the file ask program, but it can also be done in the headset display. And I'll show you both. Here's file ask. I'll just create new here by pressing the new shape here. And then maybe I should just say file, open shapefile. And then it goes into this folder here. This is the default shapefile folder, or at least the one that used to be default in Navipac 3. So I'll just take this one here, default shape, the one that we have used, and then we can have a look at it. Default shape. There you go. There you go. There is suddenly one difference between health display, Navipac 3 health display, and the current health display, and that is that the current health display is not using fill. It is not able to fill the object. I'll just close these ones here. They are not relevant. So one of the things that I'll send you is a document that details on the shape format and the display line format. You can also access it from getting there, the documentation side, the particular document here, the software, Navipac. This is one of the documents, one of the many documents that are not found in your Freshdesk online, but it is here, found under Navipac. And then if you go a little bit down over here, document called display lines in the headset display. Basically, these files are Very simple. And now it becomes perhaps a little bit complicated, but it does become a little bit complicated. So basically, what you're seeing here is the tool whereby you can modify these entries. This one explains what the different items mean. For instance, here, the first one here, let me move this one over here. And then this one here. Then we can see that the first line here, set pen color palette, that is the operation 3, same as we have over here. Select pen number, which is the same, and then the pen number is 2. Let me see down here. 2 is red. That's the outline that is red. Second one here, fill color palette 13. That's this one here. Select pen number for polygon filling. Color is 3. That is yellow. There you go. It's yellow. And then start polygon mode with fill and edge. And then we go to these are now coordinates 0, x, 18, y, and -2. That means pen up before moving. Here, pen up before moving to position, and that is actually this position here, plus 18, x, 0, y. And then it goes out here. This is 1, 17.5 with pen down, and then it moves all the way around and ends up here. And that's what we have further down here. Now it says end polygon mode 7. That's this one here. And then once it ends polygon mode, it will fill the polygon mode because that's how we started it. Start polygon with fill and edge. And then the last lines here are really the cross in the middle. This is how we can do it. You can of course right click and edit an entry here. This is extremely time consuming. You can insert a new entry, but of course the easiest thing is really just to do it manually because it is really just an ASCII file. You can enter these values manually. This is a possibility, as I was going to say to you. But I want to show you another possibility. And that is how you do this in the Hellsman display. I'll go down here. Now I am at the equator, as you can see. And here I want to create a shapefile. I don't want to look at the Swan and final. So I just disable the view of it. So it's not here right now. And then I can zoom in. So this is now 0, 0, 0, something like that, as you can see. I can now open here a toolbar, special toolbar. It's up to you to decide what toolbars you want to have opened. This one is called the Create toolbar. This is the Create toolbar. To the left here, I have a new digitized line, and this is exactly what I want to do. I want to create a digitized line. I call it shape. Notice my cursor has become like a sphere with a bullseye, and I can now move my... No, I think I want to start down here somewhere. I'm simply trying to draw a vessel object manually, something like this. End by double click. So now I have actually a shape file, but it's in the helpers display, it's called a digitized line. One of the advantages is that I can move these points around if I want to. As you can see, I can also add new points. If I want to double click on a point here and then add a new point here, as you can see, if I want to do that, I can also change my mind and press escape, and now it's not there. I can now, here on the digitized line, I have the shapefile here. I can right click on it, and let's see if I can remember this. It's a boundary. Or is it a line? I think it must be edit. Edit. Let me see. No, that's not it either. Sorry about that. I can never remember what it is I have to do now. Modify. Edit coordinates. That's how it is. Because then I get this one here, because I can of course edit it just by clicking on it. See, now I have my coordinates here. Make it easy just by changing these coordinates to 4. All these here. 4. 4. And then I can close. If I do it, then it'll be updated. Save. Look at that. It was actually, the coordinates were moved around. So once again, right click on the shape, modify, edit coordinates. This is how it should be done. Something like this. You can see it on the chat now. So I hope you're not getting too confused by this. It's, of course, important for me to emphasize that the important thing about the exercise is the Navipac configuration. The shapefile may not be so important, but it's still a good tool, and there are some good functionalities and features here that it could be quite useful to know something about. So once I've edited, I still think I need to modify this one a little bit. But I can now take the shapefile, right click on it, and export. Once again, it's not I need to export it as a display line file here. In the same location, see, I have a Navipac bin enhancement 2D shape. It does remember it. And this one, I will just call vessel on of 4. I'm only going to create one. Save. And then open containing folder and change the extension. This one here. Change the extension to SHP. Sure you want to change it? Yes, I am. This is the one. We also have a look at it. Open with Notepad. Really simple, as you can see. And now I can go to the vessel object here, move to, and then instead of using this huge swan 2D shapefile, I'll take the one that I've just created, that I have down here. This is the one. There you go. Yeah, it's a little bit fat, but I think I'm sure you get the point anyway. I'll just end by disabling here under miscellaneous surface grid. And now we are back to where we were before. I have a 2D shape and I have a 3D shape, or 3DS as we call it, 3DS model. Like this. And then Samuel, we've got a few minutes extra. You were asking, how can I auto-center the vessel? It is a good question. I would normally have talked about it tomorrow, but there is once again a toolbar, view toolbars. That's called the follow toolbar here. That's this one. And I can select an object to follow by pressing the icon to the left. And then I simply choose the. So now it is auto-centered, as you can see. But you can also see that I can rotate it. It's using north up follow mode, run line up follow mode. There is no run line, so gyro up follow mode. But I can still rotate it if I want to have it look like this. It's still auto-centering. Right, guys, I've zoom in and out. That's just rotating the wheel of the mouse. Okay, guys, let's see. I will send you the exercise notes in 5-10 minutes time or so on your email, the same email, and and what problem is that you don't have a wheel on your mouse, but that has been specified that you should have that.
My wheel is acting up. I don't know.
It's not working.
It's working, but it's acting up. It seems not to be able to zoom out back.
Yeah, I think you need to configure your mouse somehow. I'm not sure what goes wrong there, but I think you need to configure your mouse then, because this is really something that we need both here and also in the in Navi model primarily, but also Naviated for that matter. So it must be a configuration of your mouse that of course, I don't know anything about. So you just try to make it work, Samuel. I'm sure you can do that.
Okay.
As I said, I'll send you the exercise notes. 5-10 minutes time. I'll be available on the chat until my 4 o'clock. I don't know, some of you guys must be far away, judging from your names. You must be far away when we talk about time zones, isn't that correct? Perhaps Duong and Ili. I'm just looking at your names. How far away are you, Ili? My guess is that you are in Malaysia or Indonesia. Something like that. Malaysia, yeah. KL. You guys are always from KL. Okay, that means that it's pretty late for you now. So, yeah, nice town. Duong, okay, Vietnam. That's also 7 hours. Yeah. So you two and others, for that matter, it doesn't really matter if you are more comfortable getting up tomorrow. And yeah, Samuel, that's fine. But it's up to you. If you don't want to do the exercise now, that's fine. You can do it tomorrow and then send me your results. But please do it in time so that I can evaluate. I need an hour for that. So an hour before the training starts tomorrow, that'll be fine. And basically, I'm not making any difference between you guys. So that's up to you what you want to do. But I'm here for the on the chat. Even though I'm taking off my headset because my ears are falling off, they are boiling now. Okay, guys, so it's your choice. I'll go into mute, take off my headset, and then, if not before, we will meet tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, same time as today. Thank you very much for today, guys, and thank you for asking good questions. Yeah, go on. Let me see your screenshot. Yeah, it looks okay, but 4002, yeah. The easiest way to show you that is really from Navipac Online. Let me see if I can find my mouse. It's gone. Oh, my cursor is. There it is. Navipac Online, something here called Object Monitor. (4002). I think that you have created a second transponder, isn't that correct? Yeah, that's the one. It's a second transponder, and we'll. This is one of the things we'll talk about tomorrow. Yeah, and that's fine. But the point is that if you're not using it in Navipac, then Navipac will still, it's receiving it from the HiPAP, or the USPL system, but it's not using it. And then it's calling it a free object. And that's basically what this is. It's a free object that is not used. But this is one of the things that we'll talk about tomorrow. Because that is actually an important part of Navipac 4, especially when you compare it to Navipac 3. Okay, guys, thank you very much for today. And then I will send you these exercise notes in 5-10 minutes time. Bye now.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.